Increase your likelihood of being promoted by 50% through self-awareness with the help of the fulfillment formula. And by the end of this episode, you'll know whether or not you even want to pursue promotion. I am Sam Henninger, the Courage Coach for Executives, and your host. Here, you can learn to make tough decisions through emotional intelligence and collaboration, to grow outside of your comfort zone through humble self-awareness, and to love your life by being truly honest with yourself and others. Subscribe and share with your friend. We release new episodes every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. As a Boy Scout, I had a knack for orienteering. Knowing where I was physically translated to knowing where I was along my life path. Now, I've had a lot of confusing moments in my life and lots of choices I've had to make. But the fulfillment formula serves as a tool for life orienteering to help you quickly and easily gauge where you are against where you want to go. This episode will share a story about a man who knew where he was going and showed many others the way on their own paths. We'll break down the fulfillment formula. I'll make an invitation to you, and I'll end the episode with a time to reflect on our learning. Clayton Christensen wrote the book, How Will You Measure Your Life?, to encourage readers to consider the bigger picture of their lives and the impact they want to make in the world. Drawing on his experience as a Harvard Business School professor and his own personal struggles, Christensen argued that the choices we make about our careers, relationships, and personal values have far-reaching consequences that can either lead to a fulfilling life or a sense of regret. I had the opportunity to shake Clayton's hand in Salt Lake City after a session of General Conference before his passing. This was a number of years ago. I remember him being gregarious, kind, and quite tall. I didn't know at the time how popular his work was, but hope to honor him and his work as I continue to be inspired by him. Christensen's book has had a significant impact both within the business world and beyond. His insights on the importance of purpose, relationships, and contribution have resonated with readers from all walks of life. And his formula for achieving happiness and fulfillment has been widely cited and discussed. His emphasis on the need for individuals to live with integrity and align their actions with their values has been a powerful message that's inspired many to make positive changes in their lives. Overall, Christensen's book has had a lasting impact on the way people think about their lives and the choices they make. And it continues to be a source of inspiration and guidance for those seeking a more fulfilling and meaningful life. The book title again is How Will You Measure Your Life? And I encourage you to check it out. Frameworks can feel like a dime a dozen, but the fulfillment formula is my take on these ideas. If we can get a clear idea of how we're showing up in our lives right now, we can see things we've missed. High achievers are often never satisfied, but the fulfillment formula is a tool that lets you see not only where you fall short of your ideal, but where you're doing better than you previously thought. How can you know you're on the right track toward a life of fulfillment? Fulfillment can be summed up in an equation with these factors: purpose, relationships, contribution, and time. And the relation they have to each other is a little specific. Let me explain. To calculate your level of fulfillment in life right now, what we'll do is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely there's no room for improvement, this is just peak experience for me. You'll rate yourself in terms of how close are you to living out your life's purpose? How close are you to experiencing the absolute pinnacle of joyful, satisfying relationships? How close are you to feeling connected to the contribution you are creating every day? How are you serving others? How are you creating things that will last beyond you and serve people beyond your daily work? And then time. How much time do you have? You can think about this in many ways, and we're going to touch on each of these again, but just as way of introducing you to each of these variables. That's what we're talking about. So here's the way it looks. Fulfillment equals the sum of each of these ratings, the sum of your purpose, relationship, and contribution ratings. Then you divide that by 3 to get the average, right? Take the average of your purpose, relationships, and contribution ratings. And then you multiply that average by time. We'll get into this a bit more, but you see that time has a multiplicative effect. This will give you a score out of 100, and we'll go through an example later on. But first, let's visit each of these variables, including fulfillment, using a quote, and then a bit of a reflection from me. For fulfillment, here's a quote from Lao Tzu. Fame or integrity? Which is more important? Money or happiness? Which is more valuable? Success or failure? Which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Even in just reading this, I'm feeling a lot of tension in how I understand my own sense of ambition, my own vision for my life, what I want to create, who I want to serve, who I want to become. But it's showing me different ways of looking at things. For instance, success or failure, which is more destructive? That wasn't how I was expecting the quote to go when I first found it. Success can be destructive. Failure can be constructive. The segment here, if you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. Well, that to me, draws a line between being of service to others versus seeking validation through others. So when we're talking about fulfillment and how relationships play a part in that, we aren't talking about seeking validation or seeking absolution from our weaknesses if we can just get enough people to appreciate us, to like us. If we look to others to be fulfilled, we will never be fulfilled ourselves. There's a lot there. If your happiness depends on money, you'll never be happy with yourself. I think plenty of us might be of the opinion that, man, having too much money, that's a good problem to have, isn't it? Well, if your happiness depends on money, you'll never be happy with yourself. That's something I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about that. I mean, despite my ambition, my upward trajectory through my career so far, I can feel like, yeah, that's a good way of keeping track of progress. Like, how much money are you making? That's progress. But if you aren't happy with yourself, then what does it matter? Fulfillment is about discovering, acknowledging, appreciating what truly matters. What's the most valuable? Money or happiness? What's more important? Fame or integrity? So that's a bit on fulfillment. Here's one on purpose. Soren Kierkegaard is attributed to have said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." This one hit home for me because I immediately could connect all of the times where I've felt despair in my life. It, in some part, had to do with me trying to be someone I'm not. It's important to distinguish again, as we did earlier, between being of service to others and seeking validation from others. There's a distinction between pretending to be someone you're not versus pursuing the best version of you. Because pursuing the best version of you is in part admitting that you aren't that right now, that you are pretending to be something you're not yet. This is purpose. Purpose is knowing who you are. And there will probably be tension between who you know you are versus who you know you could be. But it's about becoming more of who you are, not less. There are some things in life that, yes, we do have to give up. If we're talking about addiction, if we're talking about certain behavioral patterns that truly no longer serve us, then it is about letting that go. Letting go of the despair of holding on to things that are no longer us. Purpose is knowing who you are and being okay with it. And in fact, being proud of it. Being proud of who you are because you know through that pursuit of purpose that it's a good thing. You might be weird. People, you might have a very niche audience of people who think you are all right. You are cool. That's fine. That's good. Because again, fame or integrity, which is more important? Would you rather be famous for a persona that you created? Or would you rather be able to sleep at night, to truly laugh, to truly smile, to truly just sink in to the joy of personal relationships, knowing they like you for you, knowing you like you for you? That's integrity. That's purpose. And when you know who you are, the things you need to do, the missions you need to take on, the quests you undergo, those are your purpose. And it's rooted in accepting who you are. Relationships. Here's one from Matthew 22. Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. I happen to think that there's a lot of hippy-dippy, kumbaya, surface level, shallow talk that cheapens this experience, this idea of thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I think it goes a lot deeper. And I think it all connects back to your relationship with God and your relationship with yourself, right? Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is the other verse. It says, whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake, the same shall find it. There is so much we can learn, so much fulfillment found in losing ourselves in service of others. Okay? But as a recovering people pleaser, I'm at a point in life where I'm setting up a boundary. I'm setting up a line, an expectation of myself. And maybe you could benefit from this same expectation. That while there is so much to learn about giving ourselves to others, about serving in our relationships, the motive and the purpose truly matter. It's not about earning someone's acceptance or love or staying on their good side. It's not transactional. Although there is exchange in healthy relationships, it's about giving and receiving. It's about being connected with your purpose, with your identity, and then extending that knowledge, that appreciation, that wisdom to those around you, helping them see that in themselves. Because a lot of people, probably you, definitely me, we need to do that inner work. We need to figure that out. And once we do, we can be an example to others. We can magnify the satisfaction in our relationships when we show up as our best selves. Because then we can show others, well, here are the challenges I faced. Maybe you connect with one or two. Here's what I did. Maybe you try that out. Maybe you come back to me and said, I did it a different way and got a better result because that was what I needed for me. But this is what growth and connection and intimacy mean in a relationship. It's about loving each other. And love means helping each other grow. It's about seeing the very best in each other and choosing to. Because we're all imperfect. We're all making mistakes. We all have defense mechanisms that can make us cranky, that can make us unapproachable. But when we choose to see the best in ourselves and others, which, let me just say, is not narcissism, not saying blind arrogance. I'm saying despite all of the clear evidence that you are less than what you could be, that you have major blind spots and tons of room for improvement, you still choose to love yourself. You still reject the despair of not being who you are. You love yourself as you are, and you keep moving towards who you could become. These relationships start with you and then extend out to the people closest, and then they extend out to your work colleagues, your actual next door neighbors. I know we're living in a post-pandemic world where most faces we see are through a screen. Whoever's around you, be with them, love them. And since you are with yourself, the most out of anyone, by definition, love yourself. Love yourself And with the excess, share it with others. Give of yourself. Contribution. The quote I have here is from Tom Rath, and he is one of the big guys over at Gallup, especially with the Clifton Strengths, of which I am a certified coach. And I think the whole strengths philosophy of building on what you're good at instead of trying to make up for what you're bad at has been a huge help for me in rejecting the despair of not being who I am. I know who I am through my strengths. I know who I am. But when we talk about contribution, here's what Tom Rath has to say in his book, Life's Great Question. The time to be asking tough questions about whether you can make your current job into a sustainable work life is as early as possible. Start with a very basic question. Who can, does, or will eventually benefit from my efforts? See if you can answer with the names of actual people, not abstract groups. A commonality I've observed across professions is that your contributions come into clearest view as you get closer to the beneficiaries of your work. The more you can learn about a person who directly benefits from your time and effort, the more motivation you will have to improve that person's life in the future. So while I don't consider myself a hardcore libertarian, I do like the thought of making sure that we are most connected to the people that benefit from our work the most. There's a relationship there. Being able to contribute directly to someone's well-being is, like the quote said, it's a huge motivator. So thinking about strangers on the street, strangers in your work directory, strangers in your hometown, you're not going to make that big a difference. It's not going to be a big motivator for you to help someone that doesn't know you and you don't know them. You might be connected to this abstract idea of humanitarianism, and it's fine to make contributions to people you will never meet and they will never know you. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to feel that fulfillment, more fulfillment than you can adhering to this abstract idea, this value that you might have of giving, what's more admirable? What's more meaningful? To be a 7-8 figure donor to your alma mater? Or to spend time in your local soup kitchen? To work side by side with those less fortunate? And it doesn't even have to be thinking of these kinds of service projects that we typically think of helping the less fortunate. Although that's an obvious example of how you can connect with people who benefit from your efforts. Be thinking about how can I get closer to the people who benefit from my time and effort. You might say, well, this is where the selfish part of everything kicks in. Because if I'm doing it to feel good, then does it even really count to be of service to others, to show love for others? I think we should just set that aside. I think that question is a trap. I think it's necessary and good to feel as though you are making a contribution to others, to your community. No matter how local or global that community might be, the closer you can get to individuals with names, stories, faces, voices, the closer you can get to individuals, the higher chance of fulfillment through contribution you can make. Here's a quote on time. In family relationships, love is really spelled Time. Time. That's from Dieter F. Uchtdorf. Consider how you spend your time each day, each week, each month. Consider events of this past year. Think about how much time you have left to live, or how much time you have left with kids in the house. Or are you already an empty nester? What about time with grandkids? Consider how much time you have. There's lots of ways to go about that. But you want to get down to understanding better how well are you using your time. There is a time to be the chauffeur for the kids. There's a time to be burning the midnight oil, to be burning the candle from both ends and up the middle. There's a time to be very committed to lots of different things, or extremely committed to one thing. This is part of life. But if you are feeling unsatisfied with how that time is being spent, then that's a signal inviting you to change. Consider this. I love this quote from Confucius. I think I may have heard it first from Naval Ravikant. A healthy man desires 1,000 things. A sick man desires only one thing. Now, of course, that one thing we would assume is health. A sick man desires health. A healthy man is free to desire all the things of the earth. Consider this with your time. If you were sick, if you were low on time, how would you use it? What would you want? Now, as far as the fulfillment formula goes, this is about building self-awareness around these 4 factors and how they add up into your sense of fulfillment in the moment now. You may consider time to be on your side. You may think, oh, well, I just need to double down on productivity techniques to get more done. Maybe you're at a point where you feel like something's got to give. I got to get my butt in gear. Or I am burning out with my work. I don't know what to do. I am missing my kids' life, their lives. You may feel completely satisfied with how your current schedule looks. So it's not about pushing you one way or another, about, well, you should be spending more time with your family. That's what fulfillment means. No, we want to say time, meaning to represent how satisfied are you with your use of time. Because if you are packed to the gills with commitments, but it's the most fulfilling time of your life, then put that at a 9 or a 10. All right? Don't be afraid of that. But if you're feeling overcommitted, right, this is where we need to take a point or two off, see where we really feel. So how to calculate this? Let's revisit that. This is based on each of these factors: purpose, relationships, contribution, and time, being each judged on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute perfection, peak experience. You're going to take the average of purpose, relationships, and contribution and multiply it by your time score. So, for example, let's say one of you felt in terms of purpose, you were at a 7. You know, better than average, but there's still something missing. You're still a little unclear. Not totally sure how to get out of that despair of not being who you are. You know there's something that you're not being true to. So it's a 7, right? You're feeling pretty good, but there's room for improvement. And let's say relationships. Relationships, we'll put it at a 4. We'll say, I don't know how to communicate with my spouse. I don't know how to connect with my kids. I'm having trouble not feeling totally anxious in my role at work. There's a direct report that's giving me trouble. And my supervisor, my boss, is breathing down my neck. And I don't know how to handle these situations to make these relationships work and to be healthy. For contribution, we'll put it at a 5. You know, you're putting bread on the table, you're keeping a roof over your family's head, but much beyond that, you're not really connected to anyone that's truly benefiting from your work. It doesn't seem like the people you work closest with really understand or appreciate what you do and why. So there's a big disconnect there with contribution. And then let's say, finally, for time. Obviously, how you rate time is informed by these other 3. But we'll put it at a 5. We'll put it at a 5 and say, I'm working. I have time with family. Like, as far as on paper work-life balance goes, it's pretty good. I'm not working crazy hours. But I don't feel like I'm giving my best. I don't feel like I'm spending my time best way. It just sort of feels like I'm on autopilot. And I'm not making the most of the time I'm given. So I'm going to put that at a 5. All right. So let's tabulate. 7 plus 4 plus 5, 16 divided by 3. Put it like 5.3, right? Then we multiply that by 5. Your rating for your time. That comes out to just under 27 out of 100. Okay? Yikes. Now, you might feel that, okay, 27 out of 100, that doesn't reflect the true satisfaction I'm getting out of life right now. Maybe things aren't looking as bad. Let me reevaluate. Please, go ahead. Do that. Because the point is in building self-awareness. Building self-awareness is the thing that's going to help you get that next promotion. It's going to be the thing that helps you take your relationships with acquaintances into friends, and then with friends into best friends. Your kids to knowing that you're their parent, to truly loving and giving and trusting. It's self-awareness. That's where it starts. Self-awareness is the currency of self-development. So the more you have, the more you can spend on truly becoming who you are. The point here isn't to try to get 100 out of 100. We're human. This is life. You might just feel like you have a perfect 100 a few times in your life. Don't count it out. But also, let's set some realistic expectations and just starting where you are. Where are you? And now that you understand a bit better, using, just another framework among many. But if it helps you build some self-awareness, it's done its job. Look at where things could be improved. When you put it in a numerical fashion, maybe it'll help you gamify it a bit more. What would it take to bring my 4 in relationships up to a 5. Or my 5 in contribution up to a 6. You see that this all comes back to people. It all comes back to you and people. So as much as we are quantifying this in an easily digestible way, I want you to understand that it just comes down to who you're serving, who you're becoming. And when you feel like you're making positive progress towards serving others, becoming more of who you were meant to be, that's fulfillment. So no matter what you're doing, no matter how much time you have left at the end of the day, at the end of the week, if you feel like you are making genuine positive progress towards strengthening relationships, making significant contributions to others, you know their names, you know their faces and their voices, and you are making their lives better. You know your purpose, who you are, why you're here. That's fulfillment. You can do it an infinite number of ways, but you'll know if you aren't there. You'll know if something needs to change to get more of that. What do you want? Do you want more time? Do you want a clear and powerful sense of contribution? Knowing what you want is half the battle. You can free yourself from uncertainty. You can now take all your energy and skill and apply it toward getting more of what you really want. The consequence, therefore, of not developing this greater sense of self-awareness using the fulfillment formula is probably what you've already been experiencing. Lack of energy, lack of direction, lack of support, or any clear way of making things better. I encourage you to use the fulfillment formula and identify how you would rate each of those factors in your current experience. Know where you are so you can better orient yourself toward where you want to go. Consider this an orienteering tool for you to use. You may feel like you are on the right path, and that's fantastic. This is a reassurance that you are. But more often than not, you know you're on a different path. You've veered off the path of being who you really are, who you're meant to be, who you're meant to serve, who you're meant to love as yourself. It's people. It's the people in your life right now. The more you can do that, the more fulfilled you'll be. Consider these things and allow yourself to feel the simple satisfaction of making forward progress toward a life you can be proud of. We started with Clayton Christensen and his massive contribution to the world. We ended with a formula you can use right now to make better decisions and experience permanent improvements in life satisfaction. Not to mention, business leaders with high levels of self-awareness translate that knowledge into action, which improves the quality of their work and relationships, resulting in a 50% higher chance of promotion. Now, ask yourself, for those of you listening who are considering, what does my next move look like? Do I even want it? What do I want? And if you come back to me and say, I wanted that promotion, this helped me get it, fantastic. It's done its job. If it helped you reconsider what it is you want, and you found a different opportunity that gets you closer to your ultimate version of yourself, that gets you closer to loving those around you, to building a sense of contribution in your life, then it's done its job as well. I am Sam Henninger, the Courage Coach for Executives. Studies have shown that your brain's ability to successfully convert new information into knowledge that sticks with you can be multiplied 10 to 20 times when a session of learning is concluded with reflection. If you're able, please join me for a few minutes of personal integration. I will close my eyes, inhale through my nose, and exhale through my mouth. I'm thinking of the impressions I received during this episode, connecting new ideas to facts and experiences I already have, and then allowing myself to focus back to the present moment. I kindly request that you share what you've learned with someone you want to see succeed. I'm grateful to have spent this time with you. The music will play us out. Thank you for joining in the journey.